everyone. Thank you so much for hanging around. So welcome to the 2025 Australian Theatre Festival NYC Artist Panel Series. This is the first of two artist panels this week. My name is Connor Delves, and together with Mark Barford, we are the co-artistic and executive directors of the festival. So firstly, we want to say congratulations to Michelle Pearson and Aaron Nash for the incredible performance of Skinny today, so well done. And thank all of you for joining us here on 42nd Street, and to our viewers across the world who are watching back home in Australia and in the UK as well, and some also in the US, so hello to everyone at home. Skinny was first performed at the 2024 Adelaide Cabaret Festival before being reworked for the 2025 Adelaide Fringe, and then just finished seasons at Latitude Festival in the UK, the Edinburgh Fringe in July and August, winning awards and all the stars you could imagine. It has been an incredible run for these guys. Produced by House of Oz and We Rally Creatives. So we are thrilled to be presenting it here at the Australian Theatre Festival in New York. Michelle and Aaron are both Australian artists. They're based in Adelaide, South Australia. So please welcome Michelle and Aaron to New York. We're just going to ask some questions and then we'll throw it out to you at the end as well. So firstly, Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
The first question is for you. So what inspired you to create the piece initially, and what do you hope audiences take away from the show?
Well, the story that you've seen today is very true. It's very real. It was during the pandemic. It was in 2021, I believe, that I actually did have that second hernia repair surgery, which was a direct result of having weight loss surgery quite young in my 20s. And at the time, in my 20s, I honestly thought I was really fat, and I hid it from everybody. Like, my boyfriend at the time knew, some of my family knew, my dad didn't know. My dad died in 2018, and he literally didn't even know when he died. Like, I hid it, I was so ashamed of it. And it was just kind of something everyone was doing. My mum was the one, when I referenced the person in my family who had it done, it was actually my mum who had it done. And I was really judgmental, and I still feel awful about it. But it was that hernia repair surgery. I remember going back into hospital and just laying under these fluorescent lights on this very hard bed in emergency, and the surgeon didn't want to come in. He was just frustrated that it didn't work. And it was just a really awful moment, probably a very reflective moment of me going, I've done this to myself, and I need to get my head in a better place, because this behaviour with body image and health, it's going to feed onto my son, and I'm just going to basically repeat history. Like, I grew up in the world of diet culture, and I'm just going to do that to him. And I was like, as much as, he was an arsehole. Just like, I'm not going to say who it is, so I'll get sued, but he was just a really nasty surgeon, and Aaron actually plays him to a T. It's very weird. And often people see the show and they'll be like, is that Doctor? And you're like, whoa, like, that's weird. And I think, just laying there and having that moment of, being, really sad and just very kind of ashamed of myself in that moment, I thought to myself, I need to tell this story. I did tell a couple of mentors at the time in Australia that I wanted to do this story, and they said, oh my God, if you do this, it's going to change your life, and you have to get it out there. And it took me ages to do that. I was very scared. First, I was scared that I would always be associated with it, and that I'd never be able to leave that world of like weight loss, because there's actually a lot of stigma around it. And then I was just ashamed of what like my band would think of me. Like, I remember telling Aaron, I was like I was having an affair or something. Like, his wife's over there. Like, and it was very weird. I was just like, I've got to tell you something. So I was really ashamed of it. And I think after I just thought, I'm going to put it into the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, I'm going to like apply for it. And I just did a really good pitch. And then they contacted me, and then as soon as they contacted me, I thought, oh my God, like, I might actually get in, and I might have to actually tell this story. And then it was 2 days before Christmas, they said, congratulations, you've got the Frank Ford Commission, which is, $30,000 Australian to commission a piece, which is huge money for us. And we'd never been in the Cabaret Festival together. who do you have to get into that? Because that's what I knew it would open doors for my career, and it did. And then I was like, oh my God, Aaron, we're in that like Cabaret Festival. We've got to write this show like now. That's happened. So I was really hoping that sorry, it's long answer to this question. So I think I was really hoping that it would maybe bring light to the issues of diet culture, and that maybe those younger generations or even the older generations would actually look and go, yeah, I do that to my daughter, or we always talk about that, and actually stop that and actually make people realise how damaging their words can be.
So you spoke a little bit about how the process started. So how did you go about changing the show? Obviously it started at the Cabaret Festival, moved on to the Adelaide Fringe. So what was the process like in creating the show, and what point was Aaron on board right from the start, or what was that like?
So I started writing that, and yes, he was on board from the very beginning. And at first I think his role was just very much, he was just going to be the music guy. And then...
which is how we worked for about 10 years.
Yeah, and I think as I was kind of going through the writing of it, and it was also just a very busy time, like we're working on other shows, and so it probably got to like May, I hate to admit this, but it got to like May, about 6 weeks.
The show was in June.
And we were like, we really need to like really work, like we really need to edit this because it's not working. So we had a team come in, but at that point in time, Aaron emerged as this kind of amazing writer, and we were like, oh, okay, he's actually really good. He actually wrote that whole weight loss drug song because I was so
Me and Billy Joel.
Yeah, don't tell Billy Joel. And I just gave him a list of weight loss medications that were like popular, and he just kind of made it into a song. And it was also helpful as well, and I want to acknowledge her, she's here. Claire, Aaron's wife, is an actress, and she's behind us in third row. And she is also a very, very good writer and dramaturg, and also I think a really good director. She doesn't believe that, but she is. And I have this kind of team of these two helping. So I think, and Amelia Ryan as well, in Adelaide as well, helped with it. So it had it was like a huge script, and then it kind of got edited down and edited down and edited down. Aaron would then go, all right, I think we should put this in here. So Aaron ended up kind of moving from, I guess, musical director to kind of co-writer. And then I always wanted Aaron to play the doctor. And I didn't, that wasn't because he's like him. It was just, I thought I need someone to read those lines. And then he just kind of morphed into this schmarmy kind of doctor. Yeah.
That's pretty much a good. It just evolved very organically, and it was a workshop between the four of us, us two, and Claire and Amelia, and we brought our regular band that play across our other shows we do, and they all contributed a lot musically to the show. Michelle sort of had a few of the songs in mind. I suggested a few other songs, and then how we arranged it was sort of a combination of our ideas and just little things that the band brought to it. So, it really has been a group effort, and everyone that has touched the show at some point, whether it's our crew in Adelaide, our band in Edinburgh, the musicians we have on this show, the techs, the crew, like everyone has contributed in some kind of small way to where it is now. And to go back to what you asked about, how has it sort of evolved from the original Cabaret performance? I think it's just been a gradual refinement of seeing what works with audiences. This is the most theatrical kind of cabaret show we've ever done. Our shows are usually more music-led. Our original show is Comfort Food Cabaret, where Michelle cooks and sings. People might not think that's theatrical, but it's a different kind of thing. This is the most scripted thing we've done. So it's been a real positive learning curve for us in getting the show to where it is now.
I think also, just to add to that, is we, in the Cabaret Festival, was longer, so it was probably about 80 minutes, and we actually had a song in it called History Repeating, as you would know, and we would do like a chart essentially about women's body shapes over the time, so like ancient Egypt to the 90s heroin chic, and we had that, and it was really fun, and it definitely served a purpose, but it made it very female focused, and I think I think in the Cabaret Festival it landed.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the Adelaide Fringe there were just it started to feel a little bit inappropriate. There's also one line in it at the end of it where we'd say, "Oh, let's look at the chart for men," and then it would be blank screen, and we'd say, "Oh, there isn't one," and everyone would laugh. But then there were a few people in the audience that said, "That's not exactly true," and I think we knew with Edinburgh audiences that absolutely wouldn't land, and that's the videos, the interviews. We do try to show different sexes and different lived experience, and I think that's something that we're all starting to really understand now, is that body image is not just a woman's thing. Yes, there is so much noise about women's looks, but there's now starting to be a lot more noise about men as well. So we wanted to change that. So we did remove that, and there was a couple of other bits and pieces we removed, but we just realised that international audiences, I don't know, maybe a bit more progressive than Australia, and we just knew that wouldn't land.
It was just reflective of our learning about it as well, and realising that the issue affects all people and all types of body shapes. And people have body image issues. They might look like a catwalk model, but they've got their own body issues too. So we just kind of moved away from that and more towards Michelle's personal story as well.
And one little funny part is that there was one night, I think maybe Claire was there, but I know definitely Amelia was there that night, and we just had a really bad start. The screens wouldn't work, so the interviews weren't working, and we just skipped. We were gonna sing the song, I think, and then you were gonna read out the ancient Egypt, and I was gonna say blah blah blah, but I was quite stressed by it all. We'd started 20 minutes late. I was just feeling like really not in it, and I just completely forgot about it. I just moved to the next scene, and I kind of looked at Aaron like, shit, I forgot something, but go with me. And then we just were like, well, we didn't need it, so let's move on. So we just kind of accidentally got rid of it.
Didn't miss it. And so it was like, okay, we can drop that bit. Yeah.
Well, for Dr. Nash, and one for you, obviously coming from the music side, it's Michelle's story, a very personal one. Coming from the music side, how did you find what inspires you and your music, and how that informed the show?
Well, I think I know Michelle's skills really well. We've been working for about 10 years together now. So in terms of choosing the songs and how we present them, making Michelle's voice shine is pretty much always the top priority. And telling the story. So like I say, Michelle had a couple of songs in mind already. Karma Police was a song that we'd done in another cabaret show a long time ago, and her voice just kills in that song, and it's great for that particular point of the narrative. And we wanted music to really underscore a lot of the show. In fact, we probably in the very first incarnation probably had more of it, and then pulled back to give a bit more space in Michelle's narrative. Much like what we previously said, it's been a constant evolution, learning on the go. We didn't have all the answers in the very first script, but it's been exciting to push into this more theatrical, scripted kind of space. I have a background in film originally in a previous career. I don't work there anymore as well, so had those skills that I can kind of tap into from another life. It's been really fun.
Great. So some questions for both of you now. What does it mean to perform here on 42nd Street in New York City? What does it mean to both of you?
It's a bit of a dream come true, really. A year ago, when we premiered this show, we had no idea that it would, that we'd be here. We had no idea how the show would translate beyond our own community. Now we've done it in the UK, the US, and we've seen that the issues in the show are universal. And the personal is the universal. And that Michelle's story hits with so many different people. This is just an incredible opportunity. It's my first time in America, let alone in New York and performing. So it's a dream come true.
Absolutely what Aaron said. When we presented this at the Cabaret Festival, some shows with that commission go on to do great things, and some just don't go anywhere. And obviously, we're really hoping it would go somewhere. I think the response after the Cabaret Festival was like very big, and it was a lot of media and like people. It was quite weird. People like crying in hallways. It was very. So at that point in time, we went, "This is a show that really gets to people." But then, you know, this year, I think it was during the Adelaide Fringe, like Feb March, to be contacted by the two of you. And I remember saying to Aaron, we've been contacted by the Australian Theatre Festival in New York, and, you know, like looking into it. And then Georgie Black from House of Oz said, New York, in a very vague WhatsApp message. And I was like, what? Is this all related? And then I remember her saying, you know, there's an opportunity. I put your show forward to the Australian Theatre Festival, and I said, but I don't have any money to go to New York. Like, I don't have any. I know. Like, we're going to help pay for it. And I was like, oh my God. So it was quite a shock. And I think now that we're here, because obviously we've just been in Edinburgh, so like we just still kind of, our head has been very much in that. And now that we're here, I felt like it was last night on stage in our opening performance, 10 minutes in, that I went, wow, like I'm playing in New York, like whoa. And like that's something you dream of as a kid. Like I grew up watching like Les Mis and Miss Saigon and Phantom of the Opera, all the really sad musicals. Just when someone dies, generally. And that's what I like. And essentially it was just, that's what you want. And so when we tell people, and you know, people are very proud of us in Adelaide as well, I think the creative team, but you know, it's credit to, you know, people like yourselves who've created this festival in the pandemic, obviously, all right before, and being able to actually carry that on for as long, that have given us this opportunity. So thanks. Yeah.
I know you felt about last night as well. I think the first time the audience laughed, I just had
I was
this
like, oh!
not relief, but like warmth and pride, and you know, that's the same kind of thing about like, oh, we're here, we're doing this, and it's going to be all right.
Yeah, I think also just to add to that, like I'm a cabaret singer, and I'm a cook as well. I have a cooking show, and when we have another show that's about Australian history, so this is the most theatrical, scripted thing we've ever done, and that's never been my strong point. And so you come to New York and you think, are we good enough to be in New York? Like, is this good enough? And then when you put it in front of the audience and they like it, you go, wow, okay, that's really great, and it makes you feel really good. So I think it's been really good for us and our development as much as just, you know, the experience of being in New York.
So what does being an Australian artist mean to you, and how do you think that comes through in your work? Obviously this is an Australian festival, so we always like to ask our artists what that means to them.
I think sometimes you don't realise what is distinctively Australian until you get outside of Australia. So
Vertical grills.
well, yeah, there's a lot of Michelleisms in the script, but you know, so it's, I always ask whenever we rehearse with a new band the first time I see, is there anything that stands out that you don't know what that means, because you don't know, you know, yourself. But no, but more so, like last year we went to Edinburgh with another show. I'll come back to talk about Skinny in a second, but that show was called Down Under, the Songs That Shaped Australia. And that was brought over by House of Oz. And it was all the popular Aussie rock anthems that we've grown up with, and some of them are known internationally, some of them are not. And it's about shining a light on the stories behind them and what those songs represent. And we were thinking, how the hell is this going to go in Scotland? Are people going to care about this? Are they going to know? But we had such a great response, whether it was, you know, there were Aussie expats, or maybe people that had like studied in Australia or been there for a bit, or some people would be like, I'd never heard of that song, but the story behind it struck me, and it made me realise that, like, you know, our culture is valid, our culture is hopefully interesting, and that you know, it might not be Vegemite and beer, or I don't know what people think Aussie culture is, but to share our version of it is something unique. And you know, I think what we're doing with Skinny as well is hopefully a universal story, but a representation of what our version of that is, and people can compare and contrast that with their own lives. So that's what I think about that.
I think being an Australian artist, I'm very proud to be an Australian Australian artists, especially working here. I think, one thing, and once again, going back to Down Under, the songs that shaped Australia, that show made us realise that, Australian music tells a real story, and I think that Australian artists are very good storytellers. I also think Australian artists know how to hustle, and I feel like compared to, other places we've performed, I really think Australians are very happy to really get in there and do things. I know that we are, and that's generally what our entire company is based around, is that we literally rally together to put something on. But I feel like as well, just from meeting your team, and New Yorkers and stuff, just in this theatre in the last few days, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between the fact that everyone is just really willing to hustle and work very, very hard, and it's no shame on Edinburgh or anything like that, or the UK, but you often do have a different experience in those kind of festivals where you're working with techs who've had literally an hour lesson on how to use his PA system, or they've been thrown in the deep end and everyone's just trying to figure things out. And I do feel like, I feel like being an Australian artist is obviously, just a great opportunity to tell, our story and unique stories, but also to also support each other's Australian work and, to actually get the work out there into the world.
Amazing. Yeah,
I was just going to say, I think Australians are generally open people, tend to wear their hearts on their sleeves, will share their points of view and maybe overshare a little bit. And I don't know, maybe New Yorkers are like that as well. I feel like our culture is welcome here, our style of communicating. So.
Yeah, bravo. So we're going to open up to the audience now for any questions for Michelle and Aaron, and also we've had some questions come through earlier before the show today from our audience at home. So anyone here in the audience have a question for Michelle or Aaron?
Sure.
I'm curious about the process with the band. So obviously you two have the show and bring the show to other places, but how do you go about finding other people and bringing this story to them and explaining it and putting it together?
That's fairly stressful, to be honest. I find that really stressy. We were lucky. We in the back there, we've got a friend called Angus who used to play with us in Adelaide, and he moved over here in 2018. And he's an amazing jazz player. So this is not usually his jam, but he's played on some stuff that I've made him do when he was much younger. And yeah, I think what we did is we ended up posting in a Facebook group and just asking we need musicians, and this is what and it was funny, I had 40, 50 messages from people. It was actually really overwhelming. I really didn't expect to get that many people. And you're really upfront, this is the fee, this is what's going on, and then I noticed that some people kept being recommended, and I thought, I'm going to go for them. The other thing that was really important for me about this is that when it's hard to say this, but in Australia, I feel like there's not as many female musicians. There's just not. We have a female cellist. We often use a female drummer. We really try to have that balance, but there just isn't as many. And often the really good ones, they're booked up, they're touring. So our favourite, female drummer, she now lives in Melbourne, and we can never ever get her on anything. So the fact that there were these, two, Lara and Magda, that were recommended by so many people in this feed, I thought, I really want to check this out, and I contacted them, and they seemed great. So then we just put the band together, and we had the show charted, so we had someone chart the show for us in Adelaide so we could take it to Edinburgh. And then obviously in Edinburgh we had kind of a band that we kind of knew from our previous year, and then Aaron takes over, and I'll let you finish that process.
Yeah, so the music is written down essentially, but playing the notes isn't the hard part. It's the the timing and the flow of the show and kind of being in sync with Michelle. So yeah, it's really important to have a rehearsal with a local band. You can't just rock up. It doesn't matter how good you are. I'd be really impressed if anyone could just rock up and play and read all those cues like that. So yeah, we had.
How did we do, Angus?
Great.
He hasn't been
yeah, and I try and lead a little bit with I'm not straight up conducting or anything like that, but there's just little cues you do with your body to guide the musicians, and they're all great at being really observant about that. Sometimes I feel myself, particularly in Cold as Ice, where I'm like feeling the song as a musician, or I'm leading, and I remember like, oh no, I still need to be the doctor here, so I'm like trying to be a bit more staunch, so wearing a couple of hats at the same time there. But no, we really rely on the talent of the musicians to make the show what it is.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
We have one came through from an audience member at home before the show. So the question is for Michelle. It's Darren from Sydney. Having seen the show in Adelaide, I wanted to know how the ongoing conversation around body image has evolved since you first created the show, and if it has changed in the way you perform it.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if the conversation has very much, like, I guess we're talking about it more, so I guess you could say it has evolved. I feel like there's still a really long way to go when it comes to body image and the way we talk about bodies. And even my own behaviour, I even just sometimes look at, I'll give a really good example, like I love MasterChef because I love cooking, and so I was watching a MasterChef episode and my husband was trying to catch up on like what who had won or who'd gotten through, and I'm trying to describe the person, and I said, oh yeah, the girl, she's bigger, like that was the language I use, and he's just thinking, I have no idea who you're talking about. And then we sat down and we watched it, and he said, is she bigger? Like he would never look at someone and think that, whereas that was my conditioning that had just made me do that. So I thought, well, that's even my behaviour, and I've written this show, so old habits, they die hard, like it's hard to correct them. I think that the conversation is definitely going in the right direction, but then there'll be something that happens which puts us back 10 years, and so I think it's a constant battle. I think one thing for me personally performing the show is as soon as I put it on the Cabaret Festival stage and had that response from the audience, and the response kind of kept coming for weeks after. I had all these people contacting me on Instagram and email and sharing their stories, and then we did it in Fringe and the same thing happened. I felt very healed by it, and it was like and so from presenting it in June last year to doing it in Edinburgh, like a month ago, I'm a totally different person. I feel quite different. I don't feel the same about my body as I did when I put it on stage. I think I felt very apologetic about myself in June, and now I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, and it's just, and I feel very much. It's like telling everyone all of your like greatest fears and bearing your entire soul. This is what I've done to myself, and I'm kind of embarrassed about it. I'm going to tell you that this is how I got there, and then because I've told you everything, now you can't get me. So give it a go. Like there's nothing you can do. Like, and so you kind of, it's like reaching rock bottom, and then you're like, well, let's try and heal from this. And that's definitely evolved for me. I don't know if that's the answer they're looking for, but I think just by talking about it, maybe the constant conversation that we're all having, just by having this show, or even just looking through a magazine, or something on Instagram. It's all on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook these days. I think hopefully those discussions and those body positive influences, they are kind of taking over that space.
Right.
Yeah.
So thanks, Michelle. I'm just going to wrap up now.
Oh.
So what's next for both of you, and how can our audiences continue to follow your work?
We obviously are here for the next few, so we've got tonight at 7:30, tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. We're heading back to Adelaide. I'm heading back on Saturday, and you're heading back the week after, but we have gigs in Adelaide with all of our shows actually in October. So I reckon the best way to follow our work is probably on our social media accounts, Michelle Pearson Music. You can also go to Skinny the Show and find out when that is. We look like we're having some seasons in Perth, Fringe World Perth next year. And so that will be like January, February. We'll also be touring in April.
Adelaide Fringe.
We've also got Adelaide Fringe.
February, March.
Who would forget that?
Yeah.
Because it's huge. It takes over our lives. So February, March. So pretty much kind of the top end of next year. Very, very busy. So if you go to Skinny the Show or Michelle Pearson Music, We Rally Creative, you can find all that information.
we're also
Yeah.
looking forward to taking Skinny to regional South Australia.
Yes, absolutely.
Which was part of a prize that we won. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. We won the Staging Change Award by the Mental Health Commissioner of South Australia, and that just takes us on a tour around regional South Australia. And we really like regional South Australia. Yeah, we love it. We love a good motor in. We do.
We've taken the show to the Northern Hemisphere, but and lots of big cities. It's going to be really interesting for me, I think, to see how this lands in country Australia.
Because usually country audiences
they might be a bit more conservative sometimes.
Yeah, but sometimes they want to party.
Yeah.
They're like, play some chisel.
I'm sure the issues in the show are just as resonant out there, but we'll see how that goes.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, just to wrap us up, our next artist panel is on Saturday with the incredible Madeleine Nunn after the performance of her show Flick at 2 p.m. right here on this stage. There's still tickets available for that, so you can book those online. Please do help spread the word. Our hashtag is OzTheatreFest. Thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of the festival.